Welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm Kathleen Walter. With us now on the phone from Los Angeles is political strategist, Fox News contributor, and book author Doug Schoen. Doug's most recent book is Hopelessly Divided. And Doug, welcome back to Newsmax TV.
Thanks for having me, Kathleen.
Well, public support for U.S. action in Syria appears especially weak. Congress seems reluctant to approve use of military force. Some in the international community, like the U.K., have backed away from involvement in Syria. Even Democrat Charlie Rangel says the president's handling of Syria has been an embarrassment. What does all of this mean or say about Barack Obama and his handling of the Syrian crisis?
Well, it means that the president is going to see his approval ratings fall. It's going to mean that congressional approval is going to be unlikely until the final vote. It'll be hanging in the balance. And as Congressman Rangel so aptly put it, the United States, the president, have been embarrassed as a result of this process.
Is the president losing the power past presidents have had in their handling of foreign affairs?
I think the answer to that is yes. I think, bottom line, we've lost power. The Iranians have gained power. The Russians have gained power. Put another way, the president said there was a red line. The red line's been crossed. We haven't taken action.
Senators John McCain and Lindsey Graham have had a, quote, candid exchange with President Obama on Syria. And Senator McCain warned Monday that the consequences would be catastrophic if Congress votes against a military strike against President Bashar al-Assad. Do you agree with that assessment?
I do. I don't believe the United States can commit itself through the President of the United States to a course of action and then stand down. And if the Congress goes against the president, we will look weak and impotent, regardless of whether you're for a strike or against a strike. Bottom line, the president is the head of state, the leader, and if he makes a determination and we don't follow through on that determination, we are weakened and we are ultimately seen as impotent.
The president on Friday was ready to flout the Constitution and start the second war of his presidency, but then came the announcement that he planned to seek congressional approval for a strike. How do you view this, especially in light of John Kerry's statement that President Obama has the right to strike even if Congress doesn't authorize it? And do you see Obama moving forward with the strike anyway?
Well, you're asking three or four questions. First, I don't believe had he struck under the circumstances that he had laid out, that it would have necessarily flouted the Constitution. But that being said, I think we've gotten ourselves into a position where the president has outlined different positions at different times. He had made it clear that if the red line was crossed, we would strike. All last week, it seemed we would strike. John Kerry made a forceful case for striking. And then 2 days later, Kerry and Hagel had to go on TV and defend the decision to go to the Congress. If the Congress turns down a strike and the president acts in some way, I think that could provoke some sort of real crisis of governance. I think more likely, if the Congress turns down a strike, the president will blame Congress, have a short-term political win, if you can call it that, at the expense of American prestige and credibility.
Mm-hmm. Let's say, Doug, for a second, Congress rejects the war authorization. If it doesn't constrain him militarily, do you see it constraining the president politically?
Well, I think that the president will be weakened. I think the process weakens the president. We have other issues, as you well know, on the table, the debt ceiling, Obamacare, the budget. And I just think this process, if the president doesn't get a resounding vote of support, which at least at this point appears unlikely, I think it's bound just to further weaken an already weakened presidency.
The GOP seems divided on whether to intervene in Syria. What is the story behind the retreat away from the internationalist foreign policy by a large group of mostly Tea Party-affiliated Republicans? And why are they rejecting Obama's request for authorization to use military force?
Well, there has always been a strand in the Republican Party, Kathleen, of isolationism. And I've always been an internationalist. There has been a bipartisan tradition of internationalism. But with the rise of the Tea Party movement, there has been a renewed sense that America's business belongs at home, that we should take care of the country first, and that spending money on international incursions, particularly like Iraq and Afghanistan, which did not turn out as well as we had hoped, provoke and promote a sense that America best leave international expeditions to others.
Doug, a number of lawmakers say that the president hasn't articulated a clear purpose or strategy for these military strikes, or that there's no clear or attainable military goal. Is it too late for President Obama to win them over? And if so, what does he have to do?
Well, I guess what I would say is the president looks weaker and weaker on a daily basis. There clearly isn't a rationale, Kathleen. There's not a logic. And I think some commentators said, so we get congressional approval for a cruise missile strike that the Syrians are prepared for that doesn't really undermine the regime in any way and allows them in a different way to say that they have survived the American effort. So, yes, I agree that the president has to lay out something more than a desire to send limited cruise missiles as a response. And no, he hasn't provided a strategy. And yes, we're weaker as a result.
Last question for you, Doug. It's being reported that President Obama will be pushing gay rights when he visits Russia. All of this amongst the backdrop of the crisis in Syria. How do you view this? Well,
I think for us, the international gay rights movement provides something of a lever against the Russians who have been succeeding vis-a-vis global public opinion on Syria. I am really skeptical whether our intrusion into internal Russian affairs, seeking to lobby them on their own legislation, admittedly about the Sochi Olympic Games, I'm not clear we're going to have any real effect inside Russia, and I'm not sure that ultimately it will be all that successful and important to our allies.
All right, Doug Schoen, thanks so much for being with us today.
Kathleen, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.